My name is Amy Staub, and I've been working with Shelties as a heritage preservationist show hobby breeder since 2002. Shelties have what's called a double coat, and it's made up of two parts. They've got an undercoat, which is soft and downy, it's near the skin, it's a little cream colored, and they've got a harsh top coat of guard hairs. And those guard hairs can be anything from white to mahogany brown to honey to black. Males tend to have a longer, more resplendent coat with a regal ruff around their necks, and females tend to have a more petite, fitted version. The awesome thing about Shelties is that they're supposed to be a natural breed. They're not supposed to have body sculpting and scissor marks. In fact, they're really a wash and wear kind of a dog. The gentle variation of length of hair as each shaft tapers to a very fine tip is one of the most beautiful parts about their coat. There's really no need to trim your Shelties' body hair. Just let them be a wash and wear kind of a dog. I get asked a lot if Shelties shed, and the obvious answer is yes. Shelties shed a little bit every day. They loosen a few guard hairs every day and a few strands of their undercoat. This is all just part of the normal course of healthy coat turnover. They do release all of their undercoat at once in a major shed, and we affectionately call this blowing coat. You know it's happening when you look at your dog and you see tufts of undercoat working their way out of the guard hairs to the surface of the coat. And that's your clue that you need to do a different kind of brushing versus your routine brushing. And you need a few different tools to help with that. But I'm going to show you how to get through that seasonal shed quickly, no matter what time of year they decide to make that happen. And I'm also going to show you how to do routine brushing. Most of my dogs seem to need a good brushing about every 6 weeks. I know that probably surprises you. I just tend to look at my dogs and brush them when I know that they need it. So I've got Summer, my senior female, who I'm going to use. I'm also going to show you Charlie because he's a good example of a male with a really glorious, long, thick, harsh coat. First, I'd like to introduce you to my favorite grooming tools. These are everything that you will need in your toolkit to handle routine grooming as well as the seasonal shed. So you never want to groom a Sheltie coat while it's perfectly bone dry. And I use 3 different kinds of liquids when I'm grooming, depending on the need of the day. First, there's plain water. Now this is a mister, and it's a double action mister, so when you pull the handle once, you get a really nice stream of very fine mist droplets, and it allows you to moisten your Sheltie's coat without really saturating it. Next, you can use this same kind of bottle to fill it with a coat conditioner. And this is Crown Royale Magic Formula number 3 for coarse double coats, just like Shelties. And let me tell you, this stuff is going to make your dog smell like a show dog. And third, I have waterless self-rinse shampoo. This is by Proline. So in between baths, if your dog is just feeling a little greasy, then this is a great option. Now for your tools, I use 3 different kinds of brushes primarily. First is a regular plain pin brush. Now the pins on this kind of brush come in different lengths. You want to look for one that's about 1 inch in length for the pins, and you can see that they are just plain straight pins. This is what they call an oblong brush. Next, I use a slicker brush. Now I love the kind that come with the curved back to them, and you can see that the length of these tines are maybe about 1/2 inch. They're not very long. They're going to allow you to get pretty close to your dog's skin, and you use it in a curved pattern like that. Lastly, this is my go-to tool when I'm having a seasonal shed. This is called a grooming rake, and mine has 2 rows of teeth, and this allows you to gently lift out the dead undercoat and slide it off of the guard hairs that are trapping it next to the skin. So I've got Charlie here. Now I'm using a grooming table today for this video. Most days I enjoy just sitting on the floor and having the dog lay in front of me and I can watch TV while I'm doing grooming. But today I'm showing you on a grooming table. So the rule of thumb in Shelties is that you want to groom every hair toward the head. So I like to start at the ears and move back across the body like this. It's just my general strategy. Rules are made to be broken, and you will see that I break my own rule. But as a general rule of thumb, if you brush every hair on the dog's body toward their head, when the dog gets up, every hair is going to be standing up beautifully, and they're going to look like a show dog. So I'm just going to get a general mist in the first section that I'm going to work on Charlie. I'm going to start with my pin brush, and I'm going to show you what we call line brushing. So I'm going to brush a small section until I get a part or a line all the way down to the skin. And you can see I'm using one hand to hold the majority of coat back, but I'm not smashing it down against the body. So it's allowing me to pull small sections of hair through as I go. Okay, so here's a great line, right? That's pretty clear, all the way down to his skin, right? So that is the general goal. Now, if you're grooming for show and you have to be super methodical, I would suggest doing it in lines and then moving to the next line. If you're doing routine brushing at home, the concept is the same, but you don't have to be so nitpicky to really make sure that every single hair is brushed forward. So this is a great way just to get the hairs lined up in the same direction, and I'm even encountering in this area some thick areas where the hair has kind of sat down against the skin for a little while. So you want to be gentle with your dog, but you also have to be effective. So if the coat starts fighting you a little bit like it's fighting me, this is a great time just to add a little mist down deep where the surface mist did not get, and you keep going. You will develop a pattern, and you can see it's all in the wrist. So you get your wrist going, and it really cuts down on fatigue. The other reason that you mist your dog while you're brushing is because it really captures the flyaways in your brush. So here's what I've collected in my brush so far, just with just going down the body a little bit. Now I'm going to leave this shoulder section of shorter hair and the leg for later. So I'm going to continue with this style of body coat. Hopefully you can see in the camera angle that as I travel down his body, you can see where there's a line clear to his skin. After you have given your dog a bath, is a great time to brush them out like this. Their coat is still going to be pretty damp, but that's a great time to use that coat conditioner, the Crown Royale coat conditioner, because it just coats the shaft of the hair in such a way that your brush can go through it. So I'm going to mist his pants pretty good. The concept is the same, and it's even more important to go slow. Now here I'm changing the angle of my line brushing, still technically going toward the head, but you just need to take very small sections of this, or your dog, it's a sensitive area, so you just have to be patient and have a feather-light touch. But if your dog is trying to get up, the key to laying a dog back down is this bottom leg. If they can get that elbow underneath their body, then they can push themselves into a sitting position just like that. So you either have to push them off balance, like I'm doing with Charlie, to lay him back down before he gets that elbow all the way underneath, or you have to gently pry that that leg forward so that it lays underneath them again. So those are some tips to help your dog remain in a laying position while you're grooming. Now the tail, we are going to do line brushing, starting at the base of the tail and moving down the tail. And if you have to kind of rotate the tail a little bit, do it gently so that you can get your brush on all sides. All right, so here's my brush after doing the pants area. A lot of longer hairs came off and I can see some tangles. I use this slicker to help me finish off the legs, and the concept is the same. We still want to hold back the coat and pull the coat from underneath my hand, brushing in a line so that we get a part down to the dog's skin. And then there comes a point where you don't really have to hold the coat back. But even on the hocks, you want to be gentle, but you can pull all of those hairs off of the body. So you can probably, if you do this on the paw, you'll see some little spikes. And I'm going to show you in the nail trimming video how to clip those off, because those don't really need to be there. On the front, depending on how much you're able to do with your pin brush will determine where you start on the shoulder area. But you just do the same kind of thing, line brush it on down. Because this is such fine coat here, I just want to make sure that it gets really separated. Sometimes the pin brush doesn't really separate this super fine hair, but I'm just going to run the slicker over that area a few times just to make sure that it really gets separated and the oils get distributed. So I've done one half of Charlie, and I'll do the other half off camera later. Alright guys, this is Summer, and she is my senior spayed dog. You can see that her coat is needing a brush out. Back here, especially where she lays on one hip, it just kind of tangles a little bit. And for her, I'm going to use Crown Royale because it will extend the time until it gets into the state again. Okay, so here we've got some great examples of loose undercoat that is really tangled in the guard hairs and needs to come out. So I'm going to first try to get that out with my slicker brush, but if it doesn't come, then I'm going to show you the grooming rake. Okay, well that came out. Okay, so unlike Charlie, who I used the pin brush on throughout all of this stifle and upper thigh area, I'm going to switch to the slicker brush for her. Okay, so there is a piece of, I don't know if you can see, these two little tufts in here that are just being a little stubborn. So I'm going to take this opportunity to demonstrate using a grooming rake. So keeping that area nice and moist, I'm going to lift. I'm going to place the tines beside her skin and lift. So you can see I made quite a lot of progress with this one, and this one's still down there. Okay. Now, if things are really, really bad, I have been known to comb through the coat like so, to pick up a lot of hair. And when you're doing this, especially in the seasonal shed, you have got to keep the coat moist, or these tufts are going to be flying all over your house. Hi, Daisy. Daisy is just starting to blow her coat. You can see the telltale little tufts coming out here, and in her back legs particularly, she's got some really good clumps. And if you really look underneath those clumps, you can see that the undercoat is actually a tuft working its way from the skin off the guard hairs. So we're just going to help that process along. So I've got my tools assembled, and the most important part here is the spritzer and the grooming rake. Unless you want to be vacuuming hair for a long time after you brush, you need to spritz. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put this against her skin and gently lift. You can see I'm pulling out tufts and tufts and tufts. And because I use the spritzer, they're all staying contained on my rake. You need to be cognizant that this may be uncomfortable for the dog, so be careful how much pressure you use. You still need to accumulate the hair on the tool and get it off the dog. But you may have to use cookies periodically to keep the dog enthusiastic about this process. Okay. This hair in here is a little awkward because it's near a crevice, and so I'm going to turn to my trusty slicker brush and just use that. You notice I'm not traveling across the dog, I'm just doing one stroke in an area, curving the brush as I pull. For most of my pulls, I'm going against the grain, right, going toward the head, but that's not a rule. You do whatever that location requires you to do in order to get leverage on the tuft that needs to work its way out. If your dog has tangles, you can't just dive in like this with the rake and with the slicker. You have to use a pin brush to at least get all the hairs going the same direction. Now you notice I'm using a slightly different technique, which is just short little pulls going with the grain, i.e. brushing toward the tail. The undercoat doesn't seem to get released evenly across the whole body at once, so you may have to do this process again when new body areas loosen up. The pants are a special area. I noticed that I've got some tufts here that are actually pretty far from the skin level, if you can see that. So I can't just go in there. I need to spritz really well. You start with my pin brush and just try to get all the hairs going the same direction first. Using very gentle strokes. I'm not actually trying to pull out hair even though it's happening. Now I'm going to start in the middle and just very gently, because this is a very sensitive area, I'm going to do line brushing with my rake. And my goal is to get the rake down to the skin for each line of the part. This is very coarse hair, and you've got to take it slow. Okay, this is looking good. Now I can pull my rake all the way through it. Much better. Now I can get my fingers all the way to the skin everywhere. There's no tufts blocking my way. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this helpful. Now go make your own Sheltie look gorgeous.